Two families started the exact same year, with the exact same dream: own their land, skip the traditional mortgage, and build something that actually fits how they live. One went tiny, 200 square feet on wheels. The other went Barndominium, 1,000 square feet on a slab. A year later, only one of them could actually get a mortgage refinanced, insure their home like a normal house, and sell it if life changed. Which one do you think that was? Stick around, because the answer isn't what most YouTube videos are telling you. Quick thing before we dive in: tap like, subscribe if you're weighing housing options like this yourself, and comment which one you're leaning toward right now, tiny house or Barndominium. Let's actually break this down. Two very different starting points. Before comparing costs or lifestyles, it helps to understand what these two things actually are, because they're not really competing in the same category the way people assume. A tiny house is typically under 400 square feet, often built on a trailer, and its whole design philosophy centers around radical minimalism. A Barndominium, on the other hand, is a barn-style structure with a steel or wood frame, usually built on a permanent foundation, and it's designed to function exactly like a normal home, just with an open, airy layout and dramatically higher ceilings. That distinction matters more than square footage ever will. One is fundamentally mobile and minimal. The other is fundamentally permanent and expandable. Everything else in this comparison flows from that single difference: the sticker price illusion. Here's where most comparisons go wrong right out of the gate. On paper, tiny houses look like the obvious budget winner, often built for $30,000 to $60,000. But once you compare apples to apples, permanent foundation, code-compliant construction, and utilities included, a small Barndominium frequently delivers more usable space for the money than a tiny house does. A tiny house on a trailer might run around $45,000, but that buys you roughly 200 square feet, and it legally can't be parked in most places long-term. A small Barndominium built around $150,000 gets you somewhere between 1,000 and 1,200 square feet on your own land, with a real street address attached to it. Tiny houses win on the smallest possible sticker price. Barndominiums win on cost per square foot once everything is actually finished. What a Barndominium really costs in 2026? Let's get specific, because vague numbers don't help anyone planning an actual build. Barndominiums typically run $65 to $160 per square foot for a fully finished move-in-ready home, which is roughly 30 to 50% less than a comparable stick-built house, running $150 to $250 per square foot this year. A 40 by 60 Barndominium, around 2,400 square feet, typically lands between $156,000 and $384,000 finished, depending on location and finish level. The shell alone, before any interior work, usually runs $20 to $35 per square foot. That number is the one most kit companies advertise, and it's exactly the number that leaves buyers blindsided later. Spray foam insulation alone can add $15,000 to $30,000 on a 2,000 square foot build, a cost that's easy to forget when you're staring at a shiny shell price online. What a tiny house really costs in 2026. Tiny houses carry their own hidden cost structure, just a different shape of it. DIY kits can range from $10,000 to $20,000 for a simple design, while a fully built stationary prefab tiny home typically runs $35,000 to $68,000, and a mobile version averages $60,000 to $80,000 once everything is finished. Custom builds stretch even further, sometimes reaching $200,000 for a high-end, fully outfitted design. The real gap shows up in financing. A tiny house built on wheels is frequently treated more like an RV than a house by lenders, which means many buyers end up relying on personal loans, RV loans, or straight cash instead of a traditional mortgage. That single detail quietly changes the entire financial picture for a huge share of tiny house buyers. The financing reality nobody mentions. This is the part that genuinely separates these two options in 2026, and it rarely gets the attention it deserves. Most conventional mortgage lenders still won't finance a Barndominium through standard Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac programs, so buyers typically turn to rural banks, credit unions, farm credit services, or USDA construction loans instead. It's more paperwork, but it's a well-worn, doable path. Tiny houses face a steeper climb. A home on wheels, not attached to permanent land, often gets classified more like a recreational vehicle than an actual house, which locks a lot of buyers out of traditional financing altogether. If long-term equity and resale flexibility matter to you, this single factor might decide the entire debate before square footage even enters the conversation. Space that feels bigger than the numbers suggest. Here's something barndominiums quietly do better than almost every other housing style, and it's easy to miss until you're standing inside one. Most barndominiums feature 12 to 16-foot ceilings compared to the 8 or 9-foot ceilings in a typical home, and that extra volume creates a genuinely different feeling of space. An 800-square-foot barndominium with 14-foot ceilings and an open floor plan can feel roomier than an 1,100-square-foot conventional home. Tiny houses play a completely different game. Every inch gets engineered for function: lofted beds, fold-down tables, stairs doubling as storage. It's not about feeling spacious. It's about feeling impressively efficient, which is its own kind of satisfying if minimalism genuinely fits your lifestyle. Lifestyle fit, and who actually thrives where. This is where the honest answer stops being about money entirely. If you own or work rural land, run equipment, need a workshop, or plan to grow a family over time, a barndominium supports that life far more naturally since it can combine living space with a garage, equipment bay, or shop under one connected roof. A tiny house typically can't absorb that kind of practical need without adding separate outbuildings, which quietly erodes its original cost advantage. On the flip side, if mobility genuinely matters, if you want the option to relocate your entire home without selling real estate, or you're testing minimalist living before committing further, nothing touches what a tiny house on wheels can offer. It's not a lesser option. It's simply optimized for a completely different kind of freedom. Maintenance and long-term durability. Barndominiums generally hold up remarkably well over time. Well-built barndominiums can last between 50 and 150 years depending on materials and maintenance, and metal siding and roofing require far less upkeep than traditional wood exteriors, usually just occasional cleaning rather than frequent repair work. That kind of longevity plays a real role in long-term value, especially for anyone planning to stay put for a decade or more. Tiny houses, particularly ones on wheels, face more wear simply from the nature of their design. Constant exposure to towing vibration, weather shifts, and tighter mechanical systems means more frequent maintenance, and the smaller scale of everything plumbing, insulation, structural joints leaves less margin for error when something eventually needs fixing. Resale value and the long game. This is often the deciding factor for anyone thinking years ahead instead of just months. Barndominiums tend to hold or even increase resale value, particularly in rural markets where buyers already expect and want that style of home. In suburban areas where buyers lean traditional, that appeal can soften. So, location genuinely shapes this outcome more than the structure itself does. Tiny houses face a tougher resale conversation almost everywhere. Between financing hurdles for potential buyers and a genuinely smaller pool of people wanting an ultra-minimal, often mobile home, resale tends to move slower and land lower relative to the original investment. It's rarely framed as a long-term asset the way a barndominium increasingly is. So, which one actually wins in 2026? Here's the honest answer, and it's not the dramatic verdict some videos promise. If the only question is the absolute lowest upfront cost, a tiny house wins, full stop. If the question is long-term value, financing ease, livable comfort, and flexibility for changing life, a small barndominium wins for most people, especially anyone with rural land or a family in the picture. Neither option is objectively better. They're built for genuinely different lives. The real mistake is choosing based on which one looks better in a 5-minute video instead of which one actually matches how you plan to live 5 years from now. Bringing it all together, two families, two completely different paths, and neither one made the wrong choice, they just chose different freedoms. One traded space for mobility, the other traded simplicity for permanence and room to grow. That's really what this whole debate comes down to once the noise gets stripped away. If this breakdown helped you see your own decision more clearly, subscribe for more honest housing comparisons like this one, and let me know in the comments, tiny house or barndominium, and more importantly why.